Welcome back to the Kanto Conference Finals for the GBA. My name is Chris. Joining me is Tom. Say hey, Tom.
Hey Tom.
Hey, Tom. He did it. He did it. He completed the joke. Everybody. That is the San Jose Sharpedos. Tom joining me for commentary here. We have the Kanto Conference, like I said, which is the one and only Gubstacular because two would be way too annoying versus the one and only Nick, the Boston Red Sox, because he literally doesn't even have enough internet for one person. So
Ouch.
it's the truth. I'm just talking facts. There's nothing you can do about that. So here we go. We've got the match. We're about to see what they are bringing. We wrote down what Gubs is bringing beforehand because we don't get to see his on there. Seeing Nick bringing Deoxys speed, probably the lead. I would say either that or the Thunderous. That's what I would imagine. It's
Yeah.
two fastest things. Could be running like a Scarf Diggersby or something like that for U-turn advantage, maybe.
Um, I mean, the only thing it doesn't outspeed Tornadus or Pinsir, but besides that, I think it outspeeds most everything else, right?
Yeah, it's
Diggersby at least, not Scarfed.
yeah,
Oh, Celebi. Never mind. You're right.
yeah. It's. I mean, Nick's got some good options here. He's got some good lead options. I mean, I don't think he's run it ever, but I suppose he could be running fake out Hariyama. But I
That's true.
I think with the amount of bulk and consistent recovery on Gubbs' team, that's a little silly.
Also, I
Um,
think Fake Out is a little futile against his team because of the fact that he has two steel types, being Heatran and Skarmory.
yeah. So one thing about the going into this match is thing we were talking about. Gubbs has a very bulky roster. The team that he brought to this, in case you want to go ahead and know, is Mega Pinsir is one like real offensive sweeper. Then we've got Togekiss, Skarmory, the Tornadus, which he's leading with right now, versus the Kyurem, which that's a good prediction for Nick. Um,
It is.
and I mean, I think that's got to be a straight up prediction, right? Because why else
I
would you
mean,
lead with that?
in terms of leads, though, Kyurem is a good pick, assuming that having him lead it like this, it seems it has to be scarfed because doesn't Tornadus get Focus Blast?
It does. Interesting enough, the Tornadus outspeeds there, so that makes me wonder if that's scarfed. Glaciate, good move by Nick, foregoing the extra power of the Ice Beam for the speed drop utility.
Yeah, that's very smart by Nick. He has used Glaciate in the past, but it is smart to take advantage of that side effect.
Yeah, bringing it here, especially because now that he knows it outspeeds him, he can figure out, well, it probably, if Nick knows he's scarfed, then that means that thing has to be scarfed. It's going to be interesting to see will Gubbs switch out and save this because he does have the regenerator, so it's not necessarily done for. And if he's not confident he's going to be faster here after a -1, which I don't think he probably will be. I think a
It was in,
switch. I think he's probably going to switch out here.
yeah, the hard switch I think is coming, but it was interesting him going for Air Slash over any other type of move, even U-turn for the momentum, because maybe he was predicting. I can't even think of anything that he would predict in
Yeah,
for like a Focus Blast
yeah,
or even Superpower.
could have been going for a flinch or something right there. I don't think this early on it would be something he would be hoping for. And even then, air slash not a perfect accuracy move, so I don't necessarily understand going for that over the you know he could have also been predicting a heat wave or something thinking Nick would predict a heat wave and possibly go out to Hariyama. That could be why we get it. Uh, Actually leaves the Tornadus in though, and it
How did that outspeed didn't?
because you got the -1 speed drop. So
Oh, right.
apparently, yeah,
Okay, you're right.
apparently the may not have been max investment or something like that, or just that -1. I'm not sure what their base stats are that they're whether or not they're close enough to just be that. I think you got to expect Heatran to come in here as the very obvious counter switch in there off the safe switch, right?
I'd agree with that.
And I
Hmm.
mean, we haven't really seen Gubbs run an offensive Heatran, but he really hasn't had to, and I don't think he'll have to this time. Just standard, no investment special attack from Heatran is going to do some serious damage to Akiram here, either side of the stab, depending on what he's going to run.
And not only that, if he goes for a Lava Plume, nothing on Nick's team really wants to take a Lava Plume.
No, even the things that would take it reasonably well aren't going to appreciate the burn short of Hariyama. Which, if he's running Guts, then he's going to take it worse than if he's running Thick Fat. So,
in terms of that Glaciate, though, Kiram's base speed is 95, Tornadus' base 121, so that 1.5 drop definitely did make a difference.
yeah, fairly huge right there. So actually go straight into the Mega Pinsir. Gotta say, bluffing close combat, or just blatantly running close combat, or
That's a very blunt, not blunt in terms of bad, just blunt in terms of like aggressive switch right there. Because bringing Mega Pinsir almost baits out, I don't know, the Thunderous. I mean, Thunderous could take a CC, and then unless he goes Quick Attack, which is not very effective, the Thunderous can knock it out.
Yeah, Thunderous reasonably shuts down Pinsir. An interesting thing here, though, is I think this actually tells us that the Kyurem and the Tornadus weren't scarfed, because there's absolutely no way that Pinsir's going to live a hit from a Kyurem, and there's no way he should outspeed Scarf Kyurem. So bringing that in, I think, tells us that neither of them were scarfed in the beginning.
Yeah, actually, I mean, well, I know firsthand that when I fought against Gubbs, he bought a Focus Sash lead Tornadus, so that could be a thing.
That could have been what he was running there, and not expecting the drop from the Glaciate, and the fact that Glaciate's lower power wouldn't kill.
Yeah, or not even expecting Glaciate at all.
Yeah, the Sash would have been rendered useless there. Straight up goes for the return, and it's enough to kill. No need for close combat or anything like that, man.
That was a. So now it's 5-5 right now.
It is. That's Mega Pinsir scary. Mega Pinsir obviously shooting up to be the kills MVP for the rather bulky Deoxys, being their one true dedicated sweeper. He's put in a lot of work this week, but Nick does have what I think is a fairly good counter to it. Granted, Thunderous is still going to take a buttload from a hit, but
it's not a very effective hit, and it's still something that I think Nick has reliably prepared for in terms of expecting what it can and cannot take, especially from Gubbs' #1 killer.
Yeah. I mean, Nick is probably, when he's on the ball, one of the most obsessive damage calculator runners in the league as far as trying things out, and also, more than willing to do incredibly niche specific EV spreads. So you got to think he brought that in confident about his ability to take however many hits he thinks he needs to take.
Hey, he did run Psychic last week against Kote.
Yeah, and right there, just another reason why Nick's in the finals right there. Safe Volt Switch, didn't need to worry about it, predicted the switch out. I gotta say, again, that has to be a prediction, because Nick stays on the ball with predictions.
It's a middle ground play, because even if it was a prediction, like looking at it, Volt Switch still, based on Pinsir's, I mean, it does have bulk, but it doesn't have enough to take a super effective hit from a Thunderous. Yeah. It's a very good momentum play, and then it's also a good, just, if Gubbs wants to stay in and be risky, it's a knockout right there.
Well, the reason I say it's probably a prediction from Nick is just because if he switched out and went for the Volt Switch and Gubbs stayed in, he has nothing else to take a hit. Like we said.
Right.
So I got to think that he was fairly confident Gubbs was not going to stay in here. Interesting move, though, going for the Diggersby on the Celebi, just because it's weak to it. I mean, you're going out for type advantage, but
but it also has that U-turn.
What do you happen to be able to look up? What's Diggersby's base speed there? Because that could be That could be Scarf Diggersby right there if he stayed in confidently to go for a U-turn, because I can't see it having enough bulk to take anything from an offensive Celebi.
It's base 78, so the way he brought it in is definitely suggesting that it's a Scarf Diggersby.
Either that or just a huge bluff on Nick's part.
It's a good bluff. Good
It
bluff.
is. It is. If that's what it is, goes back out into the Thunderous versus Skarmory. I mean, now that I'm seeing it popping in and out, Thunderous is a big problem for Gub's team.
I think Thunderous was a big problem for the past two teams that are this team and Kote's team.
This is true.
And in a sense, my team too, because Thunderous is fast, and nothing really wants to take an electric move, especially if you don't have a ground type to handle it.
Yeah.
But even so, with Nick's ability to correctly predict Pokemon coming in, HP Ice, if you have a ground type, is definitely the move that he would go for.
Mm-hmm. Nick abusing that Volt turn, U-turn, getting off his momentum here, going back into the Diggersby. Now, here's something I'm wondering. Does Diggersby learn Pursuit? Because this would have been a great week for Nick to pull something random out like that.
It does not. It only learns three egg moves in terms of just things it doesn't learn naturally.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it learns a dark move, but I am definitely it learns no, it's not a dark move, it's torment.
It learns
Thief.
It learns
payback.
Fling.
Fling. And if we haven't heard the end of it already, but Nick's infamous Fling set that he's been wanting to use.
All season, the man has been wanting to use Fling Dark Plate.
Earthplate, I think.
Is it Earthplate? Okay.
I think it was Earthplate. Because it's a dark type move, but I think the Earthplate gives it power. I don't know. We never saw it.
I think it still gets the bonus damage from holding the dark plate before it flings it. So it's essentially like a dark gem, but not being used.
It's a dark gem, but it's actually released.
Yeah. So switching the Celebi out, which I think's got to mean it's a bulky Celebi again. Goes right back into the Skarm. Goes right back out for the U-turn on Diggersby. It seems. I mean, Nick technically has the momentum here, but
it's a rotating door. Like this whole chip away is gonna eventually lead to something.
Yeah, someone's got to make an aggressive play here, or they're just gonna be, like you said, going in the rotary for another 20 minutes. I think it's gonna be about time for Gubs to do an aggressive play, and I think that was it. Staying in on the Volt Switch, knowing he can live it with the Sturdy.
Yeah.
The question is, do you go for the Roost here? Do you go for Hazards to shut down that Volt turn?
Rocks is tempting, except I mean the Roost. Essentially, the Roost. If you look at it in terms of predicting. Mm-hmm. All Roost does is just, he took damage and he got half of it back. So it's like, what was the point of staying in the first place? So I think the aggressive play here is to either go for rocks or to Whirlwind out to kind of put some pressure back on. Okay, I guess we're supposed to Roost.
Yeah,
put some pressure back on Gubs' side.
I agree with your logic there, though. I think the aggressive momentum gaining play would have been to go for that. Would have been to go for rocks and just sack Skarm, but we've seen Skarm be such an important part of his core this season. It's been almost every single match, and it's just got the right stats for its typing and move pool.
And it would be such a shame if he would lose it next season.
It does go into free agency, but he does have some early picks, so that's going to be a whole nother interesting conversation when draft time comes around. Goes out into the Togekiss. Goes out into the Togekiss while set up Calm Mind Deoxys speed.
I don't think I've ever seen a Calm Mind Deoxys speed.
Nick did say he was bringing something to this match that he had never used before in the history of Pokemon. It might be this.
I don't think I've ever seen a Calm Mind Deoxys speed ever. Not even an Uber's match.
I'm not either, but it does offset the Psycho Boost drop if he uses that, and does give it special bulk, which most of Gub's team is specially offensive.
It is.
that could be an interesting thing. I'm actually surprised to see Gubbs brought the Togekiss this week, as despite it doing massive work for him last season, he hasn't brought it much this season.
Yeah.
Um, it shares a lot of common weaknesses with a lot of his other things, and he's been doing really well actually by bringing like Snorlax in place as a specially defensive wall. And I mean, you see it right there, taking the Ice Beam. Cubs has a lot of things on his team that are just ice weak.
I think in terms of plays to be made, I think a T-Wave there would have been the better play because it would have essentially shut down the threat of Deoxys speed. Now, just a little backstory here. I made 3 of Nick's Pokemon for this battle. I believe I made Deoxys speed, and I made like one a Mawile set.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Nick, I think a 0 speed invested Deoxys speed outspeeds Gubbs' entire team.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Big freeze there on the.
Big freeze.
That's an unfortunate thing right there for Heatran to take. It's is Lava Plume one of the few moves that breaks freeze? I don't know that it is.
I was about to talk about that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it is because as we were in the other match against the Nick Cote match, and it was the same thing.
No, it was the John.
No, it was
John Joe.
Right, Joe and John. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like there are only so many moves that have the guaranteed thaw out, and I'm not sure Lava Plume is one of them. And this gives Nick certainly an opportunity to set up.
He does use Lava Plume, and
I guess it is.
Out. I don't know if that's just a general luck, thing, but
now if Gubbs is running a Heatran with Protect, this would be a good time to go for it because it would nullify a Deoxys from getting off another attack, and it would inadvertently die to burn and prevent him from taking massive damage because this thing might have superpower.
It could. It does seem at this point like he's just running, hidden power that doesn't affect the Togekiss, so that's a hidden power dragon? Or ground? No, it's ground.
Oh, okay.
I forgot about the flying type for a minute.
We both did.
I was like, that would be the dumbest hidden power ever. I wouldn't have said it that way. I wouldn't have said it that way, but man.
I'm sure there's going to be a comment or two about, was he running Hidden Power Dragon?
Yeah, nope, that's a hidden power. That's got to be Hidden Power ground. Even Nick's not that crazy. Forces the Deoxys out at less than half health, which is good for him. Still no rocks up. Togekiss can take the Volt. No, it can't take the Volt Switch, which means that's got to have been somewhat offensive as opposed to putting in any kind of special
Specs, maybe. Specs Thunderous?
Could be. It does have a lot of natural speed. And I think, taking out the Tornadus, he's taking out one of the faster things on Gubbs' team. So using the Kyurem for that purpose could have opened up the door for him to not have to invest speed elsewhere.
In terms of Nick's win conditions, I'm certainly saying that Thunderous or Mawile is up there because once he gets rid of Heatran, all Mawile has to do is get an SD up, and it can essentially just play rough or even Fire Fang the rest of his team.
Yeah. I also think that Deoxys with that Ice Beam and Hidden Power ground combo pretty much hits everything that's left.
Isn't Deoxys dead?
No, I think he switched it out.
Oh, I thought it died to burn.
It may have. I might have missed that. Yeah, I did miss that because at the top he's only got one thing statused, and that's the Hariyama that's currently out.
Yep.
So you are right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The Mega Mawile's got to put in some work unless Hariyama's running utility elemental punches, which Nick has run fairly consistently throughout the season.
Now having nice and powerful Fisty out here against a Mega Pinsir, maybe Nick is believing he could take an aerialate return? Or
unless he has some insanely specialized investment there and is running a physically defensive nature, there's no way that was going to happen.
Intimidate certainly helps here.
It is going to help. Mawile's still not going to take that wonderfully. But
that's like 35-40%.
Yeah, I mean that's 35-40% to your Mega with no recovery. Um,
Exactly.
and a Mega that has been known to tech Earthquake very consistently throughout the general metagame. Uh,
And doesn't it get that second Intimidate once it Mega Evolves?
no, it gets huge power when it Mega Evolves.
Right, right. I thought
So,
I keep
so
Intimidate.
actually, as soon as he Mega Evolves, he no longer has the Intimidator to bring in later on, um, which is a big loss for him as
It
far
is.
as dealing with the Mega Pinsir specifically. It does, however, obviously force the switch out. It is going to give Nick a chance to set up something here, potentially a sub or some kind of sword stance setup move. Uh, you know, he's
I
got
was thinking the
options.
sub could be apparent here because Heatran is the obvious switch into a Mega Mawile.
He just goes straight for the Iron Head, though, and that's going to do nothing.
Was that 31 damage
Yeah,
or
round
four
about
before
that.
leftovers?
Yeah. So Heatran possibly having a little bit of physical bulk to him, and he's running sub Heatran.
That's certainly one of Gubbs' favorite sets. This sub Heatran set.
Yeah, Heatran does a lot of work for Gubs in general. It has solid versatility, but sub Heatran does just seem to be a shining star on his team. Nick, however, teching the Brick Break, that's a good play. Uh, as, it gets him at least one free round of surprise here, because otherwise, who would leave in Mawile on Heatran? Unfortunately, I think he's going to have to switch out here, because he's not going to take a Lava Plume well.
Or at all, perhaps. And he does not want to risk that burn because nothing on his team, maybe even the Hariyama if it has guts, wants to take a lava plume because that burn is just way too scary
Yeah, I mean,
for
if he's
damage.
capable of living the lava plume at the 60%, the risk of running the burn and neutralizing it, I mean, maybe. Gubs, though, goes for the sub again, and Nick calling it, just staying in and going for the brick break. At this point, I would say he realizes he can't let that thing get behind a sub because he doesn't have a lot of options for it.
Very true. And I think he also recognizes that once this thing is gone, I think Wild puts in, like I said, a fair amount of work against Gubbs' team because even, I mean, that aerial eight, he's going to come in and he's going to have, he's not going to be at -1, so maybe they'll take it out, but is that before he takes a sucker punch from this Mawile?
Or it'll force him into using quick attack to get around the sucker punch, which isn't going to be a one hit KO. Nick
Exactly.
correctly predicting the attack, though, getting off the sucker punch.
Man, it does a fair amount of damage. It certainly almost nullifies. Well, no, there goes the Mawile, but
Yeah,
Heatran is almost out of the picture now.
it is. Potentially not in substitute range anymore. I think it's actually below substitute range. So,
Yeah, it's below substitute range. I think substitute range right now would be about 48 or 49 HP.
yeah. So just below that, which is great for Nick. Gubbs is probably going to have to sack it or switch it out for death fodder later on. And he's just going to go ahead and sack it, which is the right call, because then he's going to get momentum here off the Volt switch.
Yeah, certainly. Sorry, I need a drink of water.
Oh, that's fine. It is
So bringing
it is interesting though that Nick correctly called that going for the sucker punch. Like we said, I think Nick's probably on point the most about his getting in other people's heads in the league. He's
Oh, yeah,
he's
he's certainly
got
gone mine.
he's got such a niche ability for that it's a reason why he's here.
I think it's that I don't really care attitude, and it works. I like it.
Yeah.
So we're currently at what, a 3-3 right now?
Yep, 3-3. Hariyama a little bit under full because he's taking poison damage and things like that. The Diggersby and the Tornado's pretty much at full. However, the Tornado's probably going to take a little bit of damage here unless Gubbs just goes for the roost to try and get back up to sturdy.
Now, I will say that if in Oris, if they give Diggersby either Fire Punch or Knockoff, it's going to become much bigger of a threat.
Yeah, I mean, Diggersby's a poke. It's only going to get better as move options expand for it. There's
Oh,
really
certainly. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that a lot of Pokemon, at least 16 Pokemon, are going to get moves that they didn't get this, in this game that is definitely going to help them in the long run. And I let's see how it affects the GBA. But now it goes for a Volt Switch, back down to Sturdy.
So how do you feel about that? I mean, Gubbs is playing incredibly defensively here, even at the 3-3 point. I think probably he's playing more defensively than we've seen throughout the year, despite the fact that I've said he has a bulky team. He generally it's generally a misleading thing to go in thinking it's a stall team because it's not. It's just a team with reliable recovery that systematically takes down the other team. And I'm not sure if Gubbs is doing that here or is on the back end of momentum and is just trying to play catch up.
I would say it's your first point with a little bit of the second point coming in because based on team, you have Nick with a lot of hyper offense and Gubbs with his stand. Like the way he said it at one point when we were discussing, team strategy and all that, his team has a huge focus around Mega Pinsir because the other pokes are there to either whittle down or just to knock out the more annoying, the bigger threats to Mega Pinsir, and then Mega Pinsir just comes in and cleans up the rest.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of Nick's team, there's only so many things that Mega Pinsir can take on before it gets outclassed by something like Thundurus or gets sucker punched by Mega Mawile. Yes, it could hit those two pokes, but it can't KO them in one shot. So I think Gubbs does have to play a little bit more defensively throughout the entire battle just to sustain some type of control and not give it all to Nick.
And he has taken out arguably two of the biggest hitters that Nick brought to this match, taking out the Deoxys and actually, the Kyurem is a huge offensive threat as well. So and the Mega Mawile. So he's probably taken out things. I'm actually a little surprised to see Nick leave the Hariyama in there, though. I was thinking possibly he would go in and sack Diggersby, as I thought its utility was dwindling down a little bit more than Hariyama's, but apparently Nick disagrees or was predicting something else.
Well, the thing is with Hariyama, I think Hariyama does Hariyama outspeed Skarmory?
With proper investment, it can.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Depend on what the investment is. It's also
might not
depend on what moves Nick brought. He may not have brought Fire or Thunder Punch to necessarily hit it well.
Right.
So,
well, there goes the
Pinsir goes down, so it's going to be can the traditional Arizona Deoxys core whittle down what's left of the Red Sox offensive core? It's just the Volturn core now for those two. And the other two on the Deoxys are the ever-recovering Skarmory and who else? Celebi?
Celebi.
That's a
which
pretty
is
good
funny.
matchup, actually.
It depends on the Pokemon. If you do Skarmory versus Thundurus, no. And if you do Celebi against Diggersby, then no. But if you have the matchup you're looking at right now, then it is.
Well, Celebi versus Diggersby, if he's got, Giga Drain, he can stay in. But
he can't take a U-turn.
With physical investment, he possibly could.
That's true.
It wouldn't.
Assuming this is but Scarf Huge Power is still going to do a lot of damage.
It's going to do a lot of power.
A lot of power.
It's going to do a lot of damage. And then actually, he would get a Giga Drain off on the Thundurus, which wouldn't take it too well. So actually, I think you're probably right. Gubbs is a little bit behind the 8-ball here. That Thundurus really causing problems, and just the momentum opportunities that Diggersby have done a lot. Not necessarily anything else Diggersby has done. The Volt Switch back down to Sturdy.
If there was a title for this game, it's The Tale of Volt Turning. That's certainly what this has turned into.
You gotta say, going back to the 11-minute mark of the match, had he gotten rocks up, this would be a very different scenario.
Yeah, because Thundurus would only have so many switch-ins. I mean, Grant.
And he just goes for the roost again. And you got Nick. This is a good spot for Gubbs, though, because Nick has to make the big play. He has to decide, is he going to go for a roost and I can hit him with Earthquake? Does Nick have some other move that he can hit him with? Because I don't think Diggersby does have enough decent coverage. Or does he go for the U-turn, let Skarmory roost back up to full again?
And the thing is, just based on the name of the Skarmory, and I can't be wrong, but Skarmory's really its only moves are with Brave Bird, and that's it. And unless Gubbs wants to put up rocks and start putting a little pressure on, he can't go for much unless he wants to either put himself out of range where Roost puts him back up to full, or knock himself out at 1 HP.
And he does just go for the roost, setting up the sturdy. This has got to be, I mean, I don't think Volt Turn is a low PP move. I'm pretty sure it's up there. So I
I think
don't,
it's 32.
yeah, I don't think when you consider Gubbs has to roost twice every Volt Turn that he's going to be able to stall that out. Um, I don't know. I think Gubbs is. I mean, he has this down to a science at this point. He can just keep doing this until he can't anymore. But if he wants to win it, he's got to do something, right?
Yeah, this, like I said, this whole rotating door effect is not going to last much longer because if somehow if Nick crits the U-turn, then I think it might knock him out of sturdy range. But again, U-turn is quad resisted. But even if Nick predicts this and goes for, like you said, if he goes for Earthquake, it could make a difference.
At this point, Gubbs has got to be seriously considering that Earthquake, though, and, weighing the options. How many times can he get away with the roost predicting the U-turn now? It's it's a very basic Pokemon thing of how many times can you do something before they switch it up.
Hey,
You
look
know?
at the whole Heatran Mawile exchange. He went for sub twice, went for Brick Break twice, then rejected the fire move that third time.
Yep. And it's, the same thing you see when people are running Sucker Punch and they have a status move and it's like, well, am I going to attack or am I going to status or what am I going to do? It's very much of that traditional standoff we're seeing here, but between, Roost and Earthquake and yeah.
Or even the taunt Destiny Bond exchange. That's very
Yeah.
you can't really play around it, but when it happens, you kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you just kind of have to feel the rhythm out and say, okay, how patient is this guy going to be? How patient am I going to be? Who's going to make the call first? And what's the right call when to make it? Gubbs switching out, though, into the Celebi. Going to try and get some momentum here, I guess?
Okay, did we see leftovers on the Celebi yet?
I don't remember.
Because if we did, and this thing is in fact a Scarf Diggersby, it's it's almost like this
There's
is
the
like
lefties.
this is a limbo effect right now because Gubbs can, if this thing is a Scarf Diggersby, he can't take a U-turn, and if Nick, doesn't really have to make a big play here, a U-turn is coming, so he has to go back into Skarmory, which then he U-turns into Thundurus and takes a Volt Switch, and you see what I'm going with this?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing it's doing, which it is doing, is it is letting him, get back
Now, I
some.
will say that if by some reason Gubbs, well, if he had Rocky Helmet, the Diggersby would be taking a lot of damage, but on the same token, though,
He wouldn't be getting back up to sturdy consistently.
exactly.
So yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, the only thing this is doing for Gubbs is wearing down PP, and I mean that's a legitimate strategy, but it's going to be a long one if that's a thing. And anybody watching this should be able to look at the time left and say, I don't think it's a PP stalling length match. I think this is a pretty consistently moving match. So something's got to break here.
This has been like, what, 4 or 5 turns already?
Oh, it's been more than that. I mean, Skarmory's been down to sturdy 4 times, and like I said, it takes about 2 roosts to get back up to sturdy. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking this has probably been a 10-turn exchange right about now.
exactly.
They've been at 2-2 for quite a while. By the end of the video, they will probably have been at 2-2 for a third of the video. Nick,
No,
what's your...
easily, easily.
Was that actually U-turn I saw there?
Oh, that's definitely. Well, I mean, that U-turn could have been if predicted the Celebi prediction right there. Because if he went for U-turn and Gubs went to Celebi, that is a knocked out Celebi right there. Only putting.
Well, it's also interesting. It's a safe play. It conserves his PP. It still breaks sturdy, and it's going to get Gubs into the mindset of he has to roost or he has to do something, and it's going to make him where he goes, oh, okay, I can't freely switch Celebi in anymore if he
However, right
wants to
here,
protect.
he can go for a move that actually does damage because there's no reason to go
Or
for Roost here.
potentially set up rocks and lock down that switching. It just goes for the Brave Bird to put a little bit of damage on the Thunderous. Again, I don't know if I agree with that unless he doesn't carry rocks. Because now he's not at sturdy. He can't take that hit. So, and obviously that damage on the Thunderous wasn't enough to get there. So unless I'm wrong and he's not running rocks, which he very well might not be, as rocks in general don't do a ton to Nick's team.
I think that maybe Rock should have been a much earlier
Oh,
setup
I
because
I absolutely agree with that, but that was an opportunity. That was the best opportunity Gubbs has had in probably 20 minutes of this match.
this
And
has been 20 minutes of Volt turning.
yeah. So, it's it's going to be interesting. I'd really like to know what that Skarmory's full moveset is now, cuz all we've seen is a roost in that Brave Bird. Um
Yeah, Roost, Brave Bird. I would go as far as say maybe it's Stealth Rocks and even maybe Whirlwind, maybe.
at this point I almost want to say it's a Whirlwind Defog.
Oh
Um
yeah, Defog too. Yeah,
because rocks really do have the potential to hurt Gub's team. Obviously, Nick hasn't needed them up to this point. They would have helped, but didn't necessarily need them. Um, and I think Whirlwind, because Nick does have so many things that are just dangerous if they set up.
yeah.
So,
That's why I thought of Whirlwind. Like I said before, if he had gone for Whirlwind upon like Diggersby switching out, he could have taken control a little bit in terms of what Nick was doing because if you kind of throw off that Volt turning rhythm, maybe Gubbs could have gotten a foothold somehow, you know?
yeah.
And there goes the
There
Celebi.
goes Celebi. I think that's pretty much going to wrap the match up there. Nick should just be able to stay in, and as long as he has Thunderbolt or something that isn't Volt Turn that he can hit super effectively with, Gubbs isn't going to be able to roost up forever. And even if he does, that's all he's going to be doing, and eventually someone's going to run out of something.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it looks like right here the Volt switch is what wins Nick the game.
Yep, not Gubbs wasn't able to get up to sturdy because of his switch outs in the Brave Bird earlier. That's a big win for Nick and a very surprising win, actually. I think both of Nick's playoffs wins were somewhat surprising to people. Not in any disrespect to him because I think he's a great battler, but just when you looked at the teams on paper, I don't think many people would have expected the Hariyama team, despite its three Ubers, to necessarily make it to the playoffs.
Right.
Especially when
All
you consider he's never brought all three Ubers and, still managed to consistently do well.
Oh yeah, but even based on team structure and just you said it before, but like the preparation you put in defines how well you do in the season.
Yeah, generally, hours equal results. And when Nick puts in the hours, he puts in a lot of hours. Gubb's general strategy going into this season was, draft a well rounded, solid team that can win week to week. And I think he absolutely did that. I think this might just be a case of Nick's extreme specialization with the incredible hyper offense he had was enough.
Well, definitely, I can completely agree with that.
Gubbs just didn't bring enough offensive options here, and it cost him momentum. I think he didn't have control of that match for most of the match like he normally does. He normally does a very good job of controlling the pace of what's going on. And, even before it was down to the 2-2, it seemed like he was struggling.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think um, from just like team preview, it just seeing the capability of that Volt turning core, it was a little bit harder for him to get a grip on the matchup um, than it could have been if he didn't bring the vault turning. So
Yeah, I mean, and just some really great plays by Nick.
oh yeah,
Incredible predictions early on. Great, glaciate over the ice beam just for the utility it's a solid move to play. Again, we've seen the glaciate on Victini and stuff like that, but on a powerful heavy hitter, sacrificing that extra power of ice beam just for a specific utility, it's championship level play.
I'd also extend it to having U-turn on the tornado thunderous, because
Yeah.
if he did get that prediction right, that Celebi was down, and this match was probably 6 turns shorter.
Yep, that's very true. Using that, running just a mixed technical variant there for one thing, it's solid. I I'm amazed by Nick's gameplay. I'm still also really impressed by Gubbs. I think it was more he didn't bring the right pieces to win than necessarily playing the game wrong.
Yeah, I agree with
Um,
that.
I think he just should have gone a little bit more offensive in a couple of his builds. But I understand when you're looking down the gun at Nick's team, your first thought is, how am I going to take these hits? You know?
Yeah, and I think maybe bringing the Togekiss it could have been effective against Nick's team, but there's just so much on his team that would outspeed the Togekiss, that maybe bringing something like, I don't know, maybe whipping out the my God,
I
the
mean,
Salamence, or
yeah,
even
Scarf
this.
Salamence, Scarf Heracross. Granted, they're not going to outspeed that Deoxys speed, but they're going to
I mean,
outspeed pretty much everything else Nick has.
yeah, and then even maybe bringing Snorlax and just putting pressure on Nick, that if he had went for the boom, then it could have, put a good chip into his entire team, especially if he had gotten rid of the Mawile, or it could have just straight knocked out something if he had self-destructed on something, and
Yeah,
the Assault
we've
Vest
seen
would have.
we've seen great success out of self destruct Snorlax for Gubbs throughout the season.
Yeah, and just even from there, like, that thing would have shut down Thunderous, because if it's Assault Vest and with that huge special defense, they could have taken it, and then it would have forced him into something
Anything
else.
and
Yeah.
nothing would have really wanted to take a self destruct, probably short of maybe Mega Mawile if he switched it in and got off the Intimidator or something
I'm
like
not
that.
even sure a return, if he was like max HP, maybe a return wouldn't have knocked it out from Diggersby, and then he could have boomed on that, and then that would have alleviated his stress of the vault turning between Thunderous, goddammit, and Diggersby.
It's hard, especially because Gubbs did bring his own Tornadus, which didn't put in a lot of work for him. That's another
Yeah,
thing you got to consider. Maybe sacking that off incredibly early was a bad play, because that Regenerator and his own U-turn options could have helped out a lot here later on in the match.
it certainly could have outsped Deoxys, because we saw its entire moveset, and if it had that Scarf U-turn, it could have knocked out Deoxys um, a little bit earlier, even though the way Heatran handled it was okay. Knocking it out earlier with taking care of it or quick with U-turn, and then having Nick switch into something, and then him switch into something, right? That's how it works with U-turn. You go after they come in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we did figure out it probably wasn't Scarf Tornadus based off of something that happened. Something outspeeding the Kyurem later on that shouldn't have.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I think it might have just been sashed.
yeah, but still, just some very strange options here. Some strange things that Gubbs brought. Unfortunately, could not win the game. That's gonna make the finals the an expansion team and a expansion coach, if not an expansion team,
Yeah, right.
which is pretty interesting.
And not only that, but look at the Johto conference, and it was expansion coach versus expansion team. I couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, I mean it's been a good year for the expansion teams. Actually, it's been a good year for a lot of people, though.
It
Obviously,
has, and that was one of my biggest, questions going into the season. I was very interested to see how the expansion teams stacked up. I never thought, from the people that we brought in, being Joe, Nick, John to an extent, even and Kote and Cooper, like, I thought all those teams would definitely stand their own. And I think it definitely showed in the playoffs and throughout the entire season.
Yeah, it's the same thing, I talked about early on. I thought they were going to be at a real disadvantage for power, but just, the level of coaching competency really has been impressive here. And obviously at this point, not only statistically having made it throughout, but just if you look at him through the season, Nick is probably the best example of that. He has taken a seemingly ragtag, not necessarily synergetic team, found the things that work with them, used amazing utility and versatility, and now he's in the finals against one of the scariest teams in the league.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That Deoxys S is and Mawile, great acquisitions and played very well by Nick.
Yeah, Nick really did earn his spot here. John also earning his spot there. That's going to be a very interesting match, though. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, for sure.
But I think that's going to wrap up the video for us. Thank you, Tom, for joining me and doing this. Tom,
Thank you,
San
Chris.
Jose Sharpedos, check out his channel and all of his videos for the season. I think you're still going to get up your commentary for your match versus Joe, right?
I will. I'm gonna ask John, and probably tonight since I'll be working later. But I'll ask him just to PM it to me. I will download it, and it'll probably be up Sunday, if not Monday.
Yeah, and make sure you check that out. Make sure you go back and check out all of the coaches who put up their own commentary for their versions of the playoffs. While I enjoy doing them, it is good to go back and hear their own thoughts and explanations for things that we question, because everybody always has a good reason for what they did at the time, and you learn more about the game if you do that. So,
That's why we're here.
yep. But thanks, Tom. Glad everybody enjoyed it. That was another great, pretty much down to the wire match. And be sure to stick around for the finals. Probably, hopefully, coming up a week from when this video goes up. Hopefully by next Sunday. And that's going to be the Boston Red Sox versus the New Orleans Pelippers. And it's going to be a good one. So.
And yeah, and stay tuned after that, guys. 'Cause there's a lot that'll be coming up in the off season.
Yeah, we have a
So,
lot of off-season plans, so be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. Follow the GBA Twitter, follow any of the coaches and stuff on Twitter. Check out their YouTube channels pretty regularly. We do have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. That's a good call. So, thanks, guys.